Medications for opioid use disorders in correctional settings. Shifting the paradigm, creating a balanced correctional and rehabilitative approach. The Opioid Response Network is funded by SAMHSA to provide resources and technical assistance needed locally to address the opioid crisis. This video is part of a series to provide guidance on the implementation of medications for opioid use disorder in correctional facilities. Leading corrections and behavioral health experts present information on topics such as the use of medication, models of delivery, diversion, and linkages to care and community support. An interview with Carole Dwyer and Lynne Corey, Rhode Island Department of Corrections.
So my name is Carole Dwyer. I work for the Rhode Island Department of Corrections, and I'm a warden at the minimum security, and I have about 30 years in corrections.
My name is Lynne Corey. I work for the Rhode Island Department of Corrections as a deputy warden, and I've been in corrections in one way or another for probably about the past 20 years.
Can you talk about Rhode Island's diversion program?
So our diversion program is so that inmates that are prescribed medication for the opioid disorder take the medication that is prescribed to them correctly and not try to give it away or smuggle it into the institution.
Is diversion a problem? How do you work to stop it?
So the best way to stop diversion is with good, sound correctional practices, and it all starts with correctional officers. You need to spend time to invest with your correctional officers so that they understand why we are doing the medication-assisted treatment program. Once they understand why, you're more likely to get their buy-in, and they'll do better security checks, specifically mouth checks, to make sure that the inmates are ingesting the medication properly.
How important is it to get buy-in from your staff?
It's extremely important to get buy-in from staff, whether it's through education, in-service training, getting the staff to understand maybe even why we're doing the program. Staff buy-in is key to the success of the medication-assisted treatment program. And without our staff who do it daily, both medical and security staff, it would fail.
Was there resistance when implementing the MOUD program, and how did you overcome that?
My calf still hurt from the uphill climb. It's been a hard road. Like anything, when you start out with it, it's always difficult. Change in corrections is always difficult.
And when we started in Rhode Island, we started so quickly, we didn't have all the components in place. Mm-hmm. So we had the medication, and we had the money, and we had the treatment, but we didn't have the opportunity or the time to train our correctional staff. So after backpedaling, now we've spent a great amount of time training our correctional staff on the importance of the MAT program and why we're doing it, and allowing them input into the program, and we're finding we have much greater buy-in, and which has reduced the diversion within the institutions.
Do you also educate patients about diversion and their role in their recovery?
We need to get better at training the inmate population. They get most of the training from the clinicians on why the medication is important, why they should take it. But from a security enhancement protocol, we haven't done as good of a job as we could or should have with the inmate population. And I think we're putting more of an emphasis and focus on providing the inmates the knowledge of what is expected of them so that they're not accused of diverting the medication.
What are ways that individuals within the corrections facilities have tried to divert their medication?
Well, the book absolutely writes itself. I think that's how we've adapted over time. We've been able to take certain instances of diversion and kind of adapt to combat that. For example, partials, taking cushions or tampons and putting the cushion inside of their mouth to absorb whatever medication we're giving them, methadone more specifically, pills to be flipped up inside of their partials, very sleight of hand. They're like mini little illusionists, we say, sticking it quickly behind their fingers because correctional staff might only check the front of the hands, but it's sticking back here. We just actually found out today about quickly putting the strip in their hair or taking the methadone and putting it on their hair and then going upstairs and cutting it and then sharing it with other people. I'm sure you can come up with so many more.
We talked about if they have sleeves, they'll get the Suboxone in their sleeves. So the offender population can be very creative. So it's very important that we try to stay one step ahead of them.
What is the ultimate goal when creating a diversion program like you have in Rhode Island?
The ultimate goal is to stop diversion.
Mm-hmm. From a security perspective, so I think whether someone believes in the program or they don't, if you're a corrections person, our whole ideology is to keep diversion from happening of any kind. MAT just seems to be very specific, I believe, because it's new. It's, we've been trying to keep Suboxone out for years through the mail, through visits, through other means. So it's, I think, what's most present in front of people's minds. But the reality is any diversion is a security concern that correctional staff or administrators should be concerned about. And not just with MAT, with any kind of medication that we prescribe.
One of the big concerns is if individuals are taking medication that's not prescribed for them, it could be harmful for them and cause significant medical issues or even death.
What is important to consider when starting an MOUD program in corrections?
To have good communication between security and medical staff. A lot of times medical staff forgets that they are in security's house and they don't invite security to the table to have these conversations. So security is not as quick to jump on board and to assist in the implementation of this program. We found by sitting down, having multidisciplinary team meetings and allowing each team to talk and learn to respect each other, that we'll get buy-in and work towards a common goal.
How do you handle suspected diversion?
Usually when there's an instance of diversion, sometimes we like to have a supervisor in the area, especially with something that's so high profile like the MAT, but that might not always be possible based on other operational issues. But correctional officers understand and know that we as administrators support them, that we take diversion very seriously. So any instance or suspicion of diversion, the offender is halted. Actually, we will allow it to dissolve if some of it is still in there. However, they are taken to a disciplinary confinement unit to go through their due process for discipline. A report is written, generated with the facts of what transpired, any videos secured, etc., for the due process for discipline. And we hope, and what we'd like to stress, is that that incident report gets communicated to medical to make any kind of medical decisions concerning that diversion. And the inmate will go through its discipline, his or her discipline process, like any other discipline that we issue. What I think staff should be aware of is that just because we administer discipline does not necessarily mean that the offender or inmate, whichever terminology you'd like to use, is not taken off the program. There could be a potential taper. There could be a discontinuation over time. There definitely has to be a conversation between the provider or medical and the offender. And security can just provide the facts and the information of what transpired to them. But sometimes, I don't know if you want to speak to it because you speak to it very well, about it's really none of security's concern what happens after that, other than now their MAT might be administered in a very secure, highly secure area. So it is going to create some operational issues for you. But that whole, whether it's an email trail of the incident report or will also arrive at the discipline hearing, but it also should go to medical.
Yeah, it's very important that security tell medical that there has been a diversion. A lot of times security just assumes medical knows that there's been a diversion incident, but they won't know unless there's a conversation. So once security takes care of the disciplinary aspect of the incident, then security needs to talk with medical, then medical will decide again whether the person should be discontinued from the MAT program, medications reduced, and or switched to a different medication that can't be as easily diverted but it all has to start with a conversation, and that's what I think every agency needs to get a little bit better at, because sometimes we take it for granted and the conversation isn't had.
And I think we didn't mention it prior, but I mean, we've found through our experience only that there's usually 3 different types of people on the MAT program, right? And so one is those who really need it. 2 is those who may be getting extorted for it. And we recognize that. And part of that discipline process, if we feel that there's some form of extortion through the diversion process, we have to get involved with other units of our department, like the special investigation unit, to see if the roommate is shaking them down, if you will, for that medication. And then the 3rd type is those who really don't need it at all, don't want it. They want to provide an enterprise for themselves. And those are the types of inmates that we would probably never stop, other than by our good security practices, because they're always going to want to come in and do the hustle, as they say, and not from the 70s. They're always going to want to have an enterprise, and we're not going to, I think, do anything to stop that type of person other than through good correctional practices.
But we know, though, that the vast majority of offenders that are on the MAT program are there with the best of intentions and are there to enhance their life and to stop a possible overdose upon release.
Has this program changed the behavior of the individuals in your facility?
Well, we found out that we have less violence and less erratic behavior from the inmate population. We have a cleaner environment. Those of us that have seen a detox unit, it is not pretty. So it's less offenders going through the detox, less disciplinary infractions, in a safer environment for inmates and staff alike.
And I think it took a while for us to get to that point. Again, we're 4 years in. 4, I believe. So yes, in the first couple of years, that's not what we saw. That wasn't, it was over time as the program, I think, evolved, that we were able to see that kind of change or that kind of improvement in living areas.
Is there anything else you would like to share?
The only thing I think we'd say in conclusion is, if you're starting to implement an MAT program, it's going to take time. It's not going to happen overnight. You have to stay focused and look at the end run, and slowly but surely you can get there.
And I think I would just add, I think it's important to start from your bottom line staff and go up. I mean, a lot of the opioid crisis has hit at a national level. And so a lot of times these directives and these initiatives come from the top down, and you forget about who the people are that are actually going to help this program go forward. And so please make sure that early on that you take your correctional line staff, whether it be medical nurses or correctional officers, and start with them early. Let them write the program. It will be in your best interest.
Technical assistance is available to support the evidence-based prevention, treatment, and recovery of opioid use disorder. To request technical assistance, visit opioidresponsenetwork.org.